Good morning, comrade. Congratulations on purchasing our Tupolev 154 aircraft. Today we'll discuss the main systems and the startup from cold and dark state. Let's begin with forward aircraft captain's panel. So, here we have outer air temperature gauge, the speed gauge, the VSI Mach meter, the speed in kilometers per hour, because this is a Russian aircraft, the main artificial horizon, or PKP, the HSI, or PNP, the digital TKS DSI, the digital altimeter, the VOR or DME AirK receiver, ADF basically, our hydraulic systems, pressure 3, 2 and 1, the DME for number 2, the emergency brake system pressure, the altitude in meters, the altitude in feet with hectopascals altimeter, our radio altimeter, reserve artificial horizon or standby, and AUASP. Basically, this is angle of attack and G load meters. We'll talk about it later. In the center panel, we have 3 engine gauges. This is RPM for engines number 1, 2 and 3. The turn indicator, various lamps, the main gyroscopic compass indicator, the control position indicator, the main radio compass for showing the azimuth and bearing to the VOR or ARK. You can select it here. So you put your ARK frequency, select this to ARK, for this to number 2 ARK, for this to number 1 ARK, and it shows the azimuth to the ARK you selected on 1 and 2. To show the azimuth to VOR stations, you tune your VOR to course MP 1 or 2 here and select this to VOR, and it shows VOR here. Let me quickly turn to St. Petersburg 113.7, if I remember correctly. It won't work because we don't have course MP 1 turned on, so we'll just leave it there for the time being. This is the RLS Groza, the Thunder. Basically, with the radar, it can also show your drift angle, but not in this version. Next to it we have NVU SNS select switch. Basically, this is NVU/GPS. So to navigate with NVU, you leave it on the upper position. To use GPS like KLN or Transas, you leave it in a lower position. We'll talk about this wonderful magic piece of machinery later. Okay, here we have a heading select. Not a mode for Autopilot, but where the Autopilot heading select mode will take the heading from. As you remember, PNP is our HSI for Copilot and first pilot. On HSI you can select your heading for autopilot by this knob. But autopilot will take heading in this position from the left PNP, so from captain's one, and from this position from the right PNP, from co-pilots. Next to it we of course have the KLN90 navigation system. Not going to talk about this one in this video. Here we have our speed in according to the air mass, so this is our indicated airspeed, and this is our true airspeed, or no, it's a ground speed, yeah, sorry. This is for our RSBN system. So RSBN is Radiosistema ближней навигации, so the Russian Soviet analog of VUR. We're going to talk about this later. Down here we have our TKS and Trans-S control panel. This is for our let's say GPWS/TOWS system. We're gonna taste it later. In the bottom we have a selector to switch from the sensors of TKS number 1 or number 2. This is the VBE 1 or 2. You're not going to touch this anyway. In normal ops, of course. Okay, down here we have the map angle. This is for the NVU video. We're not gonna talk about this. To the right we have our navigation lights, our beacon lights, the lightning of wings, the logo light, and the bright dim knob for our lamps in the cockpit. Here we have our lights control panel for the upper part, the overhead, and the pedestal. Okay. Here we have our selector for co-pilot indication on his PNP. We're going to refer to HSI as PNP in this video. So this is off, this is navigation. So when I select NVU or SNS, the navigation source will be indicated on this HSI. It's like a localizer. VUR1, VUR2, and landing. The auto throttle engage, speed regulation knob, the auto throttle arm, sub channel select, and you don't actually need this, just it's there. Down here we have the NVU. We'll make another video just for this one, for navigation. Here we have our SAU-STU. The SAU-STU or ABSU, автоматическая бортовая система управления, or just autopilot. To use it, you first need to turn on your pitch and roll channels. Next, you want to engage your autopilot. To do this, you press the blue switch called stop or stabilization. You may also want to turn on the flight directors. You can do it with this switch. If you want to reset all the autopilot modes, you can press reset or сброс программы. To operate the different modes of autopilot, you can use heading mode, VUR1 course following mode, VUR2 course following mode, or navigation mode. But to run all of those modes, you need your master mode to be in navigation. If you want to use the autopilot for a category 2 automatic landing, you'll need to turn off your navigation mode and turn on your landing mode. Also, when you're close to localizer and glide slope, you turn your localizer and glide slope modes on. If you want the autopilot to help you descend, hold the altitude, or do whatever you want, you can use altitude hold, AAS hold, or Mach hold modes. Okay, here we have our brightness knobs for ARK15 and NVU ABCU lights. ABCU is Southeast 2 and it's autopilot. Here we have our wind. It comes from this system. We'll talk about it later also. Let's move to right. Here we have our airspeed, here in knots, there also in knots. The airspeed in kilometers per hour, the PKP of Copilot, the Mach meter of Copilot, the DME for number 2, correction number 1 here, the fuel totalizer, yeah, so everything like for the pilot. So, compass, ADF, the metric altimeter, the radio altimeter, digital TKS and digital altimeter. Here we have our windshield wipers. So this is high speed, this is low speed, radio selector for the Copilot, brightness knobs, and emergency landing gear extension. Alright, let's move to the navigator. Oh, no, the engineer seat. This is where the fun part begins. So to the left we have our main AC 115 and 200 volts electric system. We can see the voltages of the different buses, systems and generators and stuff here. Let's select the phases. We can observe the ampere load with this knob, also phases. This is the main bus connection knob, so with this knob you connect your APU in the upper position or ground power in lower position to the main aircraft bus. Here we have our generator switches. In the up position it will turn on your generator and connect it to the main aircraft bus. In the lower position you'll just see the voltage of your selected generator. It will not show the amperage load because it's not connected to the main bus, of course. Here we have PTS 250, number 1, number 2 switches. The emergency rectifier 115 volts, we'll use it later. This is the knob to check your voltages for, again, different systems. The PTS 250 selector for this knob. The main bus transfer to the left or the right. The 4 accumulator switches. Rectifiers, number 1 and number 2, also the reserve positions. The knob to check your battery voltages. The emergency rectifier on ground switch in 2 positions. Down here we have the APU panel. This is the main switch. This is the crank start switch. In the upper position it will inject the fuel into the APU and it will start. In the down position it will just rotate it to basically clear it from the old fuel. If you can't start it in one try, you'll need to put this switch to crank or the down position and start it in this position. The up we have our hydraulic system, different switches. We don't need it in our normal operations. Here we have the ABSU panel. Again, it's not modeled, and the only thing you'll need here is this blue light, исправность ABSU. We'll talk about it later. Here we have our fuel cutoff and fire extinguishing panel. So this is the main power switch, this is the different test switches. Again, later. The different horns for low cabin pressure or just overpressure. The low fuel horn. The anti-ice system here. And different light controls. Alright. What do we have down here? All this is the engine's indicators. So down here we have the vibrations. Oh no, so it's on M vibrations. Here it's just only fuel flow. Again, we are on 154B2. Here we have our pressure and temperature for the oil systems, for each engine, the exhaust gas temperature, and RPM. This is our thrust lever positions. So I move it here, and it moves here. These three switches turns on the power supply to all the engine indicator gauges, and this is for checking the vibrations of each engine. Okay, to the right we have a fuel panel. This is also our airspeed, our metric altitude, and our VSI. The different tanks, reserve fuel transfer to number 1 tank, this will, you'll just don't need this one. Different fuel pumps control switches, the firewall valves, and different controls we'll talk about later. Down here we have our hydraulic system. We have 3 hydraulic systems on this aircraft, number 1, 2 and 3. Here we have our electric pump stations for number 3 and number 2. Here we have our transfer switch to transfer the pressure from number 2 to number 1 system. This is our levels of fluid in our hydro systems. To the right we have our air conditioning and pressure panel. This here is not the VSI, this is the VSI for our cabin altitude. Here we have the delta in pressure between our cabin and outer air, and the cabin altitude. Okay. Here we have our cockpit air temperature and cabin air temperature. We also have two cabins, cabin 1 and cabin 2. The temperature select gauges here. The automatic or manual temperature regulations. The left and right manifolds. Also the how do you say it? Let's say it's our turbo fridge for cooling down our air from the main engines, and water coolers. Yeah, water coolers. Right, let's save this. Here we have the airflow of 1 and 2 manifolds. Down here we have different controls for pressure system. Also the bleed air valves down here. The secondary systems and all the stuff you don't need for normal flights. Maybe we'll talk about this in some failures video. Also down here we have our pressure system selector. Usually it's just alright, you can leave it there, but this is our delta pressure. You can regulate it from 0.1 to 0.6 kilograms on centimeter. The altitude of start of the let's say pressurization of the cabin, and here the speed of pressure change, basically. Okay. Of course, yeah. Here we have the different indicators for doors and hatches. This is a switch to turn on and turn off the door anti-icing system. Also this is for test of this control system. This is this system basically watches for high temperature on the aft part of the aircraft where APU is located. So you need to turn it on before you start the APU. Okay, I'll just leave it on. It will be off in the cold dark state. Okay, now we can start the aircraft. To do it, first of all we need to switch the batteries on. So, number 1, number 2, 3 and 4 to the up position. We can also check the voltages of every accumulator. It should be no lower than 24 volts, but it should be 27 usually. Alright. Now we can test our accumulator load. To do it, we go here. We turn the fuselage landing lights on and the wing lights to the taxi position. So extend, landing, taxi. Alright. Now we need to do this quick. Turn on all of the accumulators except number 1. Put this to number 1, this to number 1 also. We have 100 amperes load. We have no lower than 24 volts here. Number 2. Switch this to number 2 also. 100 amperes. No lower than 24 volts. Number 3. number 4. Looks about right. Now I can turn off our lighting and taxi lights. And turn all our batteries on again. Alright, now we can check our emergency rectifier 115 volts. We open the cover, switch it on, switch all these guys here on. This is the EGT gauges, and press this. If it goes up, then it's okay, and our emergency rectifier is working properly. Okay, now we can start the APU. To do it, we hit the main power switch. Our flap is open and APU is ready for start. We hit the Запуск холодная прокрутка switch to the upper position, so it can take fuel, and the firewall switch to the up, so it opens. Now we also have the pressure of fuel light here. Now I can just press the Запуск or start button here for 1 second. Don't forget your timer here. Alright. The выходный режим is light up here, so the APU is now working as it should. Alright, about 30-40 seconds for start, just about right. Now we wait 1 minute for APU to not die, and if it won't die, we'll turn on the generator and open the air valve. You can set the temperature switches here while you wait for it. I usually set it to about 21 degrees Celsius. Also, as manual says, you need to hold these switches in cold or whole for 50 seconds each, but we won't do it, we'll just put it to automatic and it should work properly. Okay, 60 seconds passed. We can connect our APU to the main bus. It shows 400 Hz, 12 volts, and 0 amperes load. 3 phases checked. We can turn off our emergency rectifier. Okay, now we can test our aft temperature control system. So, number 1, it should light up. Number 2, the system is working properly. Okay. Now, when we checked our APU generator voltages and it looks normal, we can turn it to the main aircraft bus with these 2 rectifiers, number 1 and number 2. You can see the load of rectifiers going up as you turn them on. Alright, now we can turn on the air valve, hold it here for about 10 seconds. Alright. Now we can turn on some of our systems, as we have the main electric supply on. Let me turn on the light. Okay, from left to right. DSI, PNP, BKK, we'll talk about this one later. PKP left and right. Gyro control, TKS 1, 2, heating of TKS, GMK correction, SVS, basically CADC, heating of CADC, GPS, VSI right, VBE number 2, Mars, intercom, SGS, com panels. Let's just turn on the number 1, RV5 number 1, radio altimeter and Avionics systems. TCAS, this switch to the upper position. This is C/land. So this is C, this is land, this is main power supply to the system. This free position switch controls whether the NVU will take data from CADC or this. But we'll leave it in the down position. The down position is a control of the system bit test. Okay, we can turn on the KLM already, because why not? We won't use it, so I'll just leave it on this page. Okay, the cabin signs, seat belts, no smoking, exit light, ELT, TOWS system. Okay. Okay, now we can check our engine instruments and vibration system. So let's power up number 1, 2 and 3 engine gauges and test vibration for number 1 engine, the forward sensors shows vibration, also the vibration high here, and light going up on the fuel lever of the engine number 1. Aft sensors. Okay, number 2. Forward. Aft. Number 3. Alright. You usually won't do it, but in this video we'll also test the fire extinguishing system. So to do it, we firstly need to turn off these 2 circuit breakers, the fire extinguishing number 1 and number 2. Okay, now we can power up the system. Of course, test all the lights. We should do it anyway. We can also turn on the MSRP. This is our black box. Alright. To test the system, we firstly test all the sensors in the cargo compartments. Oops. Okay. Now we select number 1 sensor group and test all sensors from APU, number 1, number 2 and number 3 engines. You can see it's lighting up, so it's working properly. We can move it number 2, switch off the power supply, switch it again on, and again APU number 1, 2 and 3, group number 3, off, on, group number 4. We don't have a APU light coming on. Why, would you ask? Because the APU only have 3 groups of sensors, but the engines 6. Okay, number 5. Oops. 6. Alright, it's working properly. Now we can turn on our fire extinguishers number 1 and 2 and turn the whole system on. Now we can test the fuel system. First of all, we turn our Toplevomer or fuel totalizer on. It shows around 13 tons of fuel. We can set it on our automatic totalizer, turn it on, and now we can turn the feed tank or number 1 tank pumps on to test if there is a fuel leak. Okay, timer for 1 minute. We want to see these 3 lights P of fuel lighting up all the time. These tanks are turned on and the firewall valves are closed. We can turn on our automatic temperature regulators. Alright. No fuel leak. Awesome. Now we check our firewall valves. It's lighting up on green. And the fuel pressure lights comes out. Green. Alright. Now we test the reserve crossfeed to tank 1. Working good. and the reserve fuel tank. Okay. What I can do now is test the rest of the tanks. So we turn it on and wait for 1 minute again. While we're waiting, we can test our anti-ice system. Turn it on, press test. We can see the green light, so it's working properly. Okay. The 5 minutes have passed. We can set our local time. In our case, we are in St. Petersburg, so we'll set the Moscow time. Moscow, it's 4:45, so 16:45. All right. On our black box, we can set our leg number. So let's set 115. Turn on the. Oh, no. Firstly, we can test lamps. Lamps are working properly. I'll turn on the MLP main and number 2. Fuel tanks working properly. Turn them all off. And we can turn off also these ones, because we don't need it now. Okay, let's test the hydraulic system. Turning on number 2 and number 3 system electric pumps. Crossfit to number 1. And let's charge the emergency brake. Right. What we can do now, usually you don't do this, but we will. We set our stabilizer to the forward position, and now we can test our flaps, elevators, stabilizer, everything. So let's firstly set the flaps to 28. Okay, timer. Flaps extending, the stabilizer is moving, the slats are also extending. Okay, around 15 seconds. Also our RVs is flashing, so it's the springs that let you feel the aircraft on cruise. We'll talk about it later also. Okay, now let's put it to 45. Collapsed. Extending, stabilizer moving. Okay. Around 15 seconds. Nice. Okay. Now we turn on the boosters number 1, and with the help of ground crew check all of our controls from number 1 booster system. So it's left, right, up, down, left and right. Okay. Number 2. And number 3. We can leave them on all because we can. Okay. Let's turn off the hydraulic systems for now. Okay, the fuel system is checked, the engines are checked, the pressure and conditioning system is set. Now we can open our window a bit and start the conditioning of the air, but not pressurizing. Let's set it to about 3. Alright. Now let's check the trimmers. So, first of all our trims are in neutral. We open the emergency trim cover and check it. Full up. And we wait for it to come to the full up position. We can control it for this gauge. You can see it moving. Okay. Now full down. Okay. Now to the neutral position. To use the normal trim after testing the emergency, we need to flip this CB down and up. Alright. Now we test the main trim. So again, Up. And all the way down. Okay. Now the ailerons. Left. And right. Now the rudder. Left. And right. Okay, now we can check the proper work of this system. It's showing 700 kilometers per hour and working good. We can turn this to NVU on this. Also we can test the CADC or SVS. It shows 900 kilometers. Alright. Now the AUSP or angle of attack indicator. And reset. Okay. Reset needles, you'll need to rotate this to left and right. Okay, let's turn on the TCAS system. 200 standby. I'll set something like 07 to 1. Okay. And out repeat. So in mode Charlie, but not TRA. We're not moving today, but it's a good habit to keep mode Charlie on if you're in airports with the mode Charlie ground positioning system. So MPSM for Russian airports. Let me see if I can find it in this scenery. No, I don't think so. Anyway. Now I can test the TOS system. Oh, of course. SLPDZ. Huh. Why isn't it working? Interesting. Anyway, let's turn on the NView. Cause maybe I know why. Yeah, of course. You need to turn on the RV5 number to correct.
Не снижайся. 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 Глиссада. 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 Глиссада.
Alright. Tested and working properly. Now, do we have... Oh, no. Okay. Let's test the BKK. Oh, you'll see the blinkers pop up on artificial horizons. Also, turning it off, and you'll see this light come up. Okay, PKP left. No lights coming up. Right. The blinkers you can see when you turn off the PKP or the pilot and co-pilot pop up. And MGB. Okay. Now I can turn on the autopilot itself. You can check it's working properly when you see this blue light here. Okay, now we can test various modes of autopilot. I'll turn the VR systems on. Stabilization working perfectly. Disconnecting. Heading and view. VR's not working. Let me check real quick. It's 113.4, not 0.7, right? Yeah, it's 0.4. Okay, now it's working. And number 2 is not working because it's not receiving a VR information. Aha. Now our autopilot system turned off. Somehow, interesting. What do we have here? It's not turning on. Okay, let's wait for 10 seconds. We can also retract our flaps as we already checked our ailerons and stuff. So 228. Stabilizer moving, flaps retracting. Alright, to 0. Alright. Hi. This is interesting. BKK working fine, and it is you not working. This is something I didn't expect. Maybe this is a failure? No. Okay, what's wrong? Let's turn off the viewer stations for now. And everything here off. Wait for 10 seconds. Well, this is odd. Anyway, we won't be flying today, so... This is an old aircraft, it can do things like this. Okay. Now, I think we are pretty much ready for startup. Except Autopilot, of course, but who uses Autopilot on Soviet aircraft? I mean... Okay, let's go with our checklist. Magnetophone. On. Covers and stuff. Doors and hatches. Not closed. Let's close it. Closed. MSRP SSOS RV number 1 on. Fuel. On. Hydraulic system pressure. Okay. Okay, hydraulic systems normal, trim, neutral, takeoff data not needed for us, stabilizer, I think it's, yeah, it's medium for us. Okay, ready to start. Of course, we need to turn on the navigation lights when we entered our cockpit, but who cares? It's a Russian aircraft. Okay. I hope this whole thing will start normally. Okay. Main switch and start switch. Load is normal. Auto and of course APD is working. Revolutions are rising. The pressure and temperature are rising. Okay, engine 1 on idle. Let's start engine number 2. Green light, APD working. Revolutions are rising. You can check generator number 1. Yeah, looking right. It's taking all the load from APU, so we can turn off the APU at this moment when we connect our first generator. Okay, number 2 engine is on idle. And number 3, APD is working. Pressure and temperature rising, revolutions are rising. You're supposed to use the timer here, but I don't use it. I just start it up, and I mean, if it starts up, it's okay. By the way, I have Felis turned off, so but there is no need for this. Okay, all 3 engines on idle. Let's check number 2. 400 Hertz, 12 volts. Alright. Number 3. Okay. When you turn all 3 generators on, the left generator takes power to the left main bus and right to the right main bus. The number 2 engine generator is just on standby, not taking any load. Okay. By the way, we had to check our voltages for the left and right buses, but yeah, I forgot to do it. Let's do it right now. Okay, right. PTS-250 working. Number 2 also working. Usually this light, this left orange light will come on, but we have our AGR switch turned on, so our number 1 PTS-250 rectifier is already working. If this switch is not on, you'll need to power up it with this switch under black color. Okay. Okay, looks alright. Now we can turn on number 1 and number 3 bleed valves. Some air. I don't switch the number 2 bleed valve on, because if I'll do it, the APU will literally die, because they have the same manifold. Okay, now we'll close the bleed valve of the APU. Now we can turn on number 2 bleed valve. Alrighty. Let's let it cool down for 1 minute. While it's cooling down, we can turn on the rest of our systems. USB, we're not using today. Yeah. This is our window heat. In lower position it's low, and in the upper position it's high. Alright. Oh, ABSU is now working, by the way. Yeah, old Russian machine living on its own. Okay. Now we can stop the APU, turning off the start crank switch, and the fuel firewall valve. Ah, yeah, because the APU stopped oh, correction, APU. No, ABSU stopped working, I forgot, we need to check the auto throttle system, but again, I got distracted, and I mean, who uses the auto throttle on the Russian aircraft? So, yeah, we'll just leave it there. Let's put our weather radar to standby mode for it to warm up. Okay, let's see. Yeah. Let's align the TKS now. The TKS, the точная курсовая система, or this thing is the main gyro system for the Tupolev 154 to find in its place in this world and navigate. Without aligning it, you will not be able to do anything. Well, you can fly and do some circles around the airport, but it's all. Okay. To align the gyro compasses of this aircraft, we'll just put it to MK, or magnetic compass. Leave it like this and see if it will move. Do we have BMK? Yeah, I have BMK. Why is it not moving? Oh no, it's moving. Yeah, you can see it moving there. Right. Yeah. Okay. The small one is moving too. Alright. Okay, now we put it to MK and press согласование or align. What the? Yeah, of course. It already aligned. That was a very quick align for Tupolev 154. Yeah. You can see the little thing and the big thing lined there. This is the most you get it. So now we select GPK, or gyro half compass, gyro pole compass, and yeah, align it in this, in the down position. Okay, now our gyro compasses are aligned. You can also select the latitude of your current position, but I already had it, so yeah. Okay. Now when we aligned our TKS, we can turn the BGMK correction off. This will need only above 100 feet, I mean flat level 100 or 10,000 feet here. Our PNP indicators to GPK from GNK. These two switches will turn on when on cruise level, and basically that's it. Okay, now our ABSU is in manual mode, and let's check our systems. Oh yeah, I know what I forgot. Not APU. We need to check the left and right manual transition for the electric system. So we turn this on and all our gauges are fed from the right system. Now we check that no orange or red lights are popping out. We have this, but this is from RSBN, and this it should be there. There's no problem. Looks like we have no faults. Okay, let's turn on the left bus. No failures. Alrighty. Now, checklist before taxi. Electro systems and consumers turned on. SRD and this thing set. Navigation complex on. Course MP or VR and air case. Course MP number 1 and number 2 turned on. Number 1 on Sierra Papa Bravo VR 113.4. Air K com and turned on. Identification out on. Boosters, the guard is closed. The RVs are turned on. Artificial horizons, left aligned, right aligned, TKS aligned. The course is 9R 09S6. Yeah. ABSU checked manual mode. Anti-ice not required. Okay. So the last thing I think we need to test is the radio altimeter. Yeah, working perfectly. 15 meters showing it. Okay, so this is pretty much it for the startup of Tupolev 154. In the next video we'll talk about the taxi, takeoff, climb, cruise, descent and landing. Thank you for watching, have a good day.